You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And welcome. We're back for another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. So, April has not been that bad after all. Every time I start a new month, I always have like this very, is this month going to be a good month, or is it going to be a pain in the ass? And I must say, this month has been pretty good for so many reasons that I can't, share so far. I know you all hate when I'm very secretive, but sadly, there's just things I really can't say. But I try not to tease, and so that's what I've been working on the most. But the things I can talk about is what we talk about on this show. So many of you all have been asking about the wedding, and, I had posted the receipts that my wedding had been fully paid for. And I guess there were some people who were just shocked because they said, oh, you put the expenses there, and what about this, and what about that? And listen, I only put the major venue receipts up because I just thought that was just weird to put everything. But I think people were just surprised that I kind of shared how much my wedding, or at least the bulk of how much my wedding was costing, which is in the upwards of over $20K. To be quite honest, it's paid for. So therefore, I didn't think about it as if it really mattered. But I guess some people were startled by that, and it had opinions, which I was kind of like, oh yeah, I forget. This is the part of social media that sometimes I forget, because a lot of times when I'm talking about issues, I don't really are talking very personal. Normally I'm talking about, who's better, Carlos Vega or Larry Krasner for Philly DA. I'm thinking about like bigger issues that is open for interpretation, debate amongst other people, not just something that is a personal decision that's kind of final. So, of course, I got messages of folks that was like, oh, you could have gotten a house with that kind of money. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm really not crazy about home ownership. It's people's personal business, what they want to do. And I think part of the reason why I'm not crazy about home ownership in Philadelphia is because it will require me to live in neighborhoods that I don't really find that interesting. Like, I don't want to live in Chestnut Hill. I don't want to live in, East Stoke, West Stoke Lane, or be caught up in a huge suburbs isolated from like other Black people that I find to be more relatable to me versus some other folks that want to pretend they're something they're not. I don't want to be in those type of environments. I'm not to say that everyone who lives in those environments are like that, right? The folks that live in the Northwest who think they're better than the people that live in West. I don't care about it that much. And I think that's part of the fact. I mean, because you'll say it's my age. I'm a millennial. I really don't care about home ownership like that. There are some. I mean, I'm a younger millennial. So I was born in 91. I was in the 80s millennial, which, there is some variations and differences in my opinion. But I'm not really crazy about home ownership, and neither is my fiance. And I think part of it is because it's just two of us. We don't have any kids at the moment. I don't think we're really thinking of kids. We can choose when we want to have kids. So that's part of it, right? But I'm not really like hell bent on it in the same way that some people have made it. And listen, that's people's personal, prerogative. If people want to go out and get homes by themselves, by all means, do what makes sense for you, right? That's your choice. But I just think it's interesting how people, can project, or not even interesting. I just find it annoying. Let me use a better word, annoying, how people can project their personal ideals on money and life. Like I am making money to live and to thrive. Let me be clear about that. Like my aspirations is not to accumulate quote unquote money, or as some people frame it, wealth, to just stack on stack on stack on stack on stack on stack on stack. I'm not saying that I make money to just blow it all and spend it, but I'm just not someone who is obsessed with making myself suffer for the sake of having a bunch of money saved up for quote unquote a rainy day. If it's motherfucking raining today. If I need that money to take care of the roof, I'm going to do that. I've seen people do things, and I'm not, I'm just talking from lived experience and situations I've seen and observed. But there's just a culture of some people who really are very frugal with money in a way that they will make themselves starve and be miserable and insufferable as fuck in the name of trying to get this financial gains of money or whatever. And when I hear these stories, I'm kind of disgusted. Like, there was a situation where someone I heard about, was they were very, very cheap. And I'm not, it's Ernestly speaking. I gotta keep it 100. So there was someone I knew that when we would go out, I would have events and socials and things. They were very, very frugal. I think that's the best way to describe it. They were very, very frugal, and it was painfully hard to see it. Like I always felt like I was the friend in the group, even though people said I have expensive taste. Let me tell y'all something real quick. I am very much, I have expensive taste, but I don't spend expensively, if that makes sense. I'm the kind of person where I typically have found ways to get deals on things. And I don't shake people down or anything like that, but I'm the person that's like, hey, if I know a way to get this reduced price, if that means paying for the early bird special or, doing the, hey, buy 5, get 1 free. I'm that kind of person. I'm that kind of guy. Or I'm someone who likes to plan parties in advance and let people know up front how much things are so people can budget accordingly or whatever. I'm that friend. I do have, I don't like crap. Let me be clear. I'm not cheap. But I'm also someone who believes, because I grew up in a household where we got nice things, but we got nice things at decent rates. Meaning, listen, I'm not going to go to Macy's and buy a polo, Ralph Lauren polo off the counter for $70. No, I'm going to go to Marshall's and they might have a version of that polo that might be not in the, well, first of all, polo clothes are so ubiquitous to the point where, you don't really know what you don't know what season the traditional polo clothes are, But anywho, I would go to Marshalls or TJ Maxx and find similar types of styles, and I would just buy it for half off or even a fourth. I was that guy, Nordstrom's Rack. I never paid full price for any of my clothes, and I still don't. I still don't. I find I'll wait a little bit. Some clothes that I will shop. One of my favorite places I love to shop, I think I've said this before, is American Eagle. I get a lot of my clothes online from there. Like my staples, y'all. Not like, my winter coats or anything, but I get my staples from American Eagle, the typical button ups and not the ones, this is a different AE collection where it's not all the logos everywhere. It's just nice, solid, plain clothes. And I want good quality material, but also not try to, break the bank, right? So I love American Eagle clothes. And when they make new designs, I look and I say, well, I'll see you in 2 months when you're on sale. And sometimes I miss my size in the sales section, but honestly, that's who I am. I always get things clearance. I get stuff on sale and nice stuff too, right? I'm that person. I'm not in a rush. I mean, most of the time, most clothes, in my opinion, unless you're like someone that's really trying to just be some fashionista in your head that you're really not. Most clothes, people are not like, that was last season, unless you're doing something ridiculously extreme, like gladiator shoes. But who's really, most average Americans are not like crazy fashionistas that are like obsessed with trends to that point. I feel like most of the time you can wear last season's clothes and the next season and it kind of, funnels its way and no one's judging seasons. Most of the time, get shit that looks nice, get colors that make sense and make that shit work. That's just at least how I dress. I'm never going to just drop money for the item, without the sale. I love Aldo shoes. I get my shoes from Aldo. And most of the times I get the shoes on sale. And I have had shoes you all won't even know. I've had shoes that are 4 years old that I've worn. And mind you, these types of shoes I don't wear all the time and beat the hill. But I'll go to an event and I'll have some of the most sharpest dudes there that are all into fashion be like, oh my God, where did you get those? Yada, yada, yada. And I'm looking like, man, I had these when I was an undergrad and I just, kept the shoe up or whatever. But like, that's how fashion works. I just feel like it's about confidence, about how you make it work and make it make sense and just, be smart. So I digress, but I say all to say that when it comes to my at least my taste in fashion, when it comes to how I spend money, I'm always like, look, I can always find deals or ways to make experiences better. At least if I'm doing outings and things with my friends, I'm never the person that's just going to assume any type of financial circumstance my friends have. Whenever I have dinner parties, gatherings, events, whatever, I'm like, look, this is what the situation is. Sometimes, the stuff is free because of just who I am, I suppose. But, sometimes if it costs, I'm like, hey, this is what it is. I'm that guy because I don't assume anyone. But that being said, you can do all of that and you can still have folks that, that are pretty damn cheap. And everyone have their different reasons. But long story short, there was someone I knew that was just basically very, very frugal to the point where I was in my mind like, I'm not even going to invite this person out with me to some stuff because I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable and I don't want to hear them just make things more difficult than what they need to be. Like one of the things I think is very tacky to do at any social event, I don't care what you're doing. Like I just learned some things. When you grow up, I was taught you don't really talk about religion at the table or in social gatherings with people that you're not like that close with, and you don't really talk about money in tacky ways for that matter. That's just something I've always lived with. I'm not the person that's like avoid controversial topics, but I think things like religion and things like money, I just think it depending on how you talk about it, it can just makes other people uncomfortable. And I didn't understand how that was until I got older and I started going to events and I would see people do this thing where they'll go to an event, they'll look at the menu and they'll be out loud, oh, that's high, that's expensive. Oh, I don't got money for that, or blah, 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 blah. And I think it's just tacky. That's just my opinion. I think it's tacky to go to an event, a public event, and scoff at prices or things. I think you should go and decide before you go to an event if it's for you and if it's not. I think it's tacky to just simply complain about the price of something at a table or talk about your financial woes out loud in front of other people. I just think it just doesn't create it's not a good vibe. And I think that's just something that I've seen happen a lot at events and gatherings I've been at. Not many that are with my close immediate friends at all, let me be clear, but just in other settings, I've seen this and I cringe. I just think it's tacky. And so this particular person, they were just very, very frugal about stuff. They would go to stuff. They would like never want to do, they actually inspired me actually to never do something that was not like a preset menu, because they would be the type that would go to the event. And everybody knows friends like this or acquaintances like this or colleagues like this where they'll see they will go and they will get the salad and the wings and then try to split something with someone else at a table. And these are adults, mind you. And then when the bill comes, they'll be so particular about what they particularly paid for to every damn cent and dollar. And you just have to wonder to yourself, like, listen, if it's that way, don't come. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't, because you'll make it worse. Your presence will be more annoying than it would be if you wasn't there at all. And so I would see this and I used to think to myself, oh my goodness, like, is this person really going through it? Whatever. But then I find out that this person was basically on some crazy crusade to pay off things and do X, Y, and Z. And I was just like, so you basically was cheap because you was trying to, I guess pay off debts or buy certain things or whatever the case, buy a house, buy a car, like all these other things you were trying to do. Like that's what you were doing it for. And so, okay. But I think to myself in that pursuit, right, that if you're going to put yourself through that kind of insufferable pain and hell for several years on end to do those type of things, is it worth it? I mean, I don't know. is it worth like losing networks or connections of friends or like, years off your life of having really good experiences so that you could be able to say you paid off something or you did this or you did that or you got this? I don't know. I'm just not in that headspace. I'm a glacial person. I just think life isn't promised. You could spend 5 years being the cheapest motherfucker on the planet only to get to your 5th year and then get all this money and then don't have any friends because you burnt bridges, missed out on opportunities in your 20s to love and grow, missed opportunities in your early 30s to really do some of those things. And you basically made yourself an indentured servant for the IRS. Like, I don't know. I'm not for it. I'm just not personally. I mean, everybody has their own journey and everybody can do their own thing. But I just think about the pain it can be, to do that. I'm just one of those people where I'm like, look, if it's, be responsible, budget accordingly, but I'm not going to put myself through absolute hell because I'm not good for anyone that way. I remember one time, this was years ago, I called myself trying to save money for a trip I was trying to go to. And I'll get to what ended up happening, but I was trying to save money for a trip and I was just a pain in the ass. I was privately a pain in the ass. Like, I don't know if my friends noticed it, but I felt like I was a dickhead. Like I was going and looking and all this strict budgeting stuff. And I just was trying to juggle being like a social person while also at the same time trying to, scoff up these coins. Fortunately, I ended up getting a grant and I ended up like not having to save all that money. But that being said, I just realized, man, I was missing important time being caught up in trying to chase these financial, ideals. And I'm not saying people can't save money, but like, don't be an asshole doing it. Like, seriously, don't. And listen, be personal with it. Do your thing. Don't feel like you got to be that person that has to tell everybody what you're doing because no one really cares outside of your partner, whomever you're with. I just think it's important to be more mature about it. And I think this is there's those moments in your life where you're like, man, I wish I was grown because maybe that would get better when I get older because I just feel like I have a lot of millennial folks in my network, in my social circles that like they're adulting. I sometimes just find it like cringy. Like they're just they're I don't want to be that guy. I just feel like sometimes people's adulting, you could be adulting faster than some people in certain situations. And like their like praises of their adulting just seems very like, okay. I don't know. I've learned as I've gotten a little older, because I'll be 30 this year, right? And I'm a Libra for those who are new to this podcast. October is my birthday. That, some of the most personal things, find your core group and keep it with them. I think that's what I'm learning. I was saying this week that I really have found my pet peeve. And I have found as I was younger, I always felt like, I was the guy who really didn't have pet peeves. If people ask me what ticks you off, I'm like, nothing. I'm pretty much an easygoing person. I still am, but I've realized, outside of course, the homophobes, bigots, and racists and all that crap. But I'm just saying, I think the one thing that this pandemic has really revealed to me is that I am annoyed with self-deprecating people. Like, I don't like people who shit on themselves. I can't stand people who consistently shit on themselves. Like, they make it an art to shit on themselves. Like, they're like consistently finding a way to put themselves down to the point where you like, smile, bitch, smile. Like, you'll just get a point where you're just like, what is wrong here? And I mean, there's some deeper shit there, right? But let me be clear. I'm not talking about people who are clinically depressed, right? If you have a real mental health issue, and I think a lot of people who are self-deprecating, there's something there. There's a wave. I'm not a psychologist. I don't claim to have the meta science, and I have friends who study this stuff. I'm just saying that what I'm getting at are that there are some people who just revel in misery or just this sense of self-pity in a way that is performative and also begs for attention. So I don't know where to start. I saw someone go on a trip recently and, I was looking at that trip like, that was fun. That looked like I had a good time. They kept fucking counting the calories of everything they ate and talking about how they was upset about what they ate and how they ate it, and they were going to pay for it. They end up talking about how they, couldn't do the things they want to do because somehow there was another tragedy in which they, hurt their body part or something. And it's just like, damn, why does this feel like I am going through a Netflix, documentary that gets horrific? Like, you're on a fucking trip. Enjoy yourself. Like, have fun. I don't know. I went to the Poconos Palace, right? Was the food at my location the most glamorous? No, but I thought it was fun. It was cute and very campy. I was not going like I don't know where to start. I just think that I don't know. I'm just the guy who's just trying to find the good in the shit that I can control. I can't control the universe outside of things I can't control, but I just try to find the good in the things in my life that is within my peripheral. Like if I don't have cheese for something I was trying to cook, well, I'm going to always have cheese. But if I didn't have arugula for a salad that I really wanted to make, well, damn it, I just don't have arugula. Okay. Like, I'll be all right. Like, there's so many other things in the world that I can be fixated on. I'm not saying that people can't have first world problems, because Lord knows I have my little first world problems. But I'm never going to at this time, right, in the world, right, with everything going on right now with the pandemic and the racism that's happening across all the various communities, I just feel like there's a lot of real tragedy and pain that no one gives a fuck about you and your bitching about calories and, some little pounds you picked up. Like, no one fucking cares, right? People are dying, person. like the way that, Chloe was telling Kim, which it goes into this part about Chloe. This dumb Instagram situation. If you're not keeping up with the Kardashians, trust me, I don't blame you. It just went on my timeline, the situation with Khloe Kardashian, who basically has been trying to hunt down a photo of herself in a two-piece, bikini set. And she finds the photos unflattering. She's basically, complaining about all of the different, the photo and the fact that it wasn't edited and filtered. And she's been, trying to track down people who've been posting the photo and using all this bullshit. And when I finally saw the unfiltered photo, I'm like, I don't see what's wrong here. Like, what's wrong here? Because they didn't airbrush. Like, what? She looks like a normal fucking person. Like, I was trying to figure out, was there like a birthmark or something that she felt uncomfortable about? No. Just a little bit of cellulite, a little bit of just body. And I was just like, okay, girl. But I just think it's crazy because these are the same people, right? These influencers who try to talk about self-confidence and all of this bullshit. But then at the same time, they're living a lie on their images and the images they project on social media. And they're perpetuating this narrative that isn't very honest about who they are and what they're really about. So I just, I find it very interesting that this is the culture we've got into. Well, we've been at for a minute, but just this over perfectionism that is still happening, even in the midst of a pandemic where our worlds have been turned upside down, where everyone should be just happy they're still alive out here. We still have people trying to curate these perfect narratives about themselves and their expectations. And I'm just like, aren't you fucking tired? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just want people to just chill. If you're listening to this podcast and you're one of these types of people, I want to tell you on behalf of people that are not like you that whatever you think people really care about or pressed about or obsessed about, they're really not. And the ones who are don't really matter. It really isn't. And I will tell you that those people, just like everyone, have their own shit that they're not happy about or frustrated about or struggling with, right? Or both, right? That whatever you feel like is going to make or break you isn't. The crazy part is that Chloe, her whole entire fiasco around the picture has gotten more attention about the picture than just simply someone catching it in something. Like she made more attention to it. And like I'm just like, who are you trying to convince at this point? But that's what happens when you're white and you're out here trying to do all this tanning and your color and your pigments are not together and you're trying to project this image of something that you're not, and you got to fake it till you keep faking it, trying to make it, and it's just not doing well. So, just saying. Um. So yeah. So I. So what did I? So I say all this to say because I love to digress. But I say all of this to say that the wedding that myself and Barry, my lovely fiance, have decided to do is what we decide to do. It's our money, it's our business. And I'm not shaken by people having opinions because, of course, people are going to have those things called opinions. I get paid to have opinions, but, opinions can be free, unsolicited, unfortunately, unnecessary, but they exist. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Some people read my shit and say, why do I gotta read his fucking opinion in Philly Mag or the Daily Beast and wherever? And I'm just like, well, because, somebody wants to read it and you're reading it and you're clicking it. You don't have to click. You could just turn the next page, but you still do. So, opinions are opinions. And I just want people who don't have the ability, like myself, to just be like, who gives a fuck? I want you to not feel like you have to protest to some of the things that do not matter. So I didn't respond on social about the nonsense that people were saying about, oh, you could have did this, but you could have did this. No, I could have did what I want the fuck to do with it. That's what I could have did with it. And that's what I did with it. And I'm proud of it. And I love it. And it's so fun because now we're in that phase of like starting to talk about clothes. So I got to go to Men's Warehouse. Thank God Men's Warehouse is not bankrupt. I was worried that they were about to close, Men's Warehouse down, but apparently they reemerged. Joseph A. Banks, I guess they're in collaboration together. They reemerged from that bankruptcy filing. So now it's just smooth sailings, I guess. So that, people can rent. The Men's Warehouse in Center City is still open. I'm going to go down there sometime this weekend, start looking at some suits, trying to match this color with this color. My wedding colors are like a dark navy blue and gold. So we're going regal, like a regal themed. So I got to get the guys' tuxedos. And what I love about this Men's Warehouse situation is that I pick out the design, which I am. Of course, Barry was very firm on the color, but I'm going to go and get the, lay out the design. The tailor that's going to be there, they're going to confirm it, and then they're going to put a system. So I have to give them the contact information of all of my wedding party, which I have. And I'm basically going to say, hey, here's all the men and women, because there will be some women in the wedding that will be wearing tux, because I said, listen, I want people to be comfortable in dressing how they want to dress. Like, don't feel like you have to wear a dress for me because, child, I don't want you to wear a dress if you're not going to be comfortable in the dress. Wear what you want to wear, but you need to wear either or. So there are some women who are going to be wearing tux to the wedding, and there's going to be, I don't think there's any men who are wearing dresses at the wedding. No. But there will be women wearing tux at the wedding. And so I said to people, just wear what you want to wear. We have a mixed wedding party on both of our sides. Barry has women and men, and I have women and men. On my wedding party, I have a best woman and a best man. He has a best man and a best woman. So we're straight. But, that's straight. We're pretty much gay. But we're having, we're looking into the suits. The women of the wedding party have established a color, the color. And of course, they got a midnight blue. I don't know what the hell midnight blue is, but it looked like dark navy to me, but it was really pretty. And they've established their dress themes. And so it's easy for me on the end of getting the men because I could just get one suit look and design and everyone's going to wear that. So I got to get that situated. And what's great about it is that I have some folks that live out of town. I have folks in Jersey, New York, of course, Texas that are coming to the wedding. And I was like, oh, snap. Do they have to get, fitted somewhere? They said no. The way that Men's Warehouse work with these rentals, and if you're someone who's going through this process, bear with me. I am new to this. This is my first and will be my last wedding. So I'm having this journey with you. I did not know that with Men's Warehouse or with any of these places, they can all get fitted in their respective cities. Get the design there, get fitted, get all that there under the same wedding party. And I don't have to see them get fitted or do any of that. They can all get fitted in their respective places and make their purchases. And the tux are only between 200 to 250, like 2 to 250. So it's the rental and it comes with everything. The man told me all they got to do is bring their boxers. So I am excited. I'm excited. I can't tell you how I'm excited about this. So now we're also working, and the thing is, so with the wedding party, I'm paying for their haircuts, the men's haircuts, and I'm paying for the women to get their makeup done. The women of the wedding are like looking up makeup designers. Apparently they found somebody. So the wedding shower we're going to have in the summer, somebody's going to get their face done by this makeup artist to see if he's the real McCoy. And then they're going to tell me, and then, we're going to set that up. But in other words, this wedding is going off without a hitch, and knocking on my wedding table. I am super excited to get to October. So yeah, that's happening. Other good news, Lil Nas X, y'all, he has his second Billboard Hot #1 track, and it is for that hit song, Call Me by Your Name, Montero. He debuted at #1 on Billboard Hot 100, which I kept telling you all it was possible. It happened. He has his second #1. He's no longer a one-hit wonder. And I'm just really happy for him because, whoa, what a week for him. I mean, like, literally, Lil Nas X was just going through it. I mean, and all types of emotions. He was going through a lot of hate, right? Because a lot of people, wanted to have their religiosity and, push that on him and really gave him a hard time for just being him, which was really it was painful to watch, right? So him going through all of that, like all of that shit, and handling it with the level of grace and maturity, but also enjoying it, enjoying the ride of controlling that narrative, having fun with it, running with it. I mean, he became an SNL skit. I mean, this man is doing a damn thing. And I'm just really happy because, it's not a lot of Black queer men in pop culture get to be sexual. And I think that that's the thing, right? It's like society likes their Black gay men either invisible or very, very presentable and respectable. And to talk about relationships, to talk about sex, to talk about the things that piss them off is an anomaly. A lot of people, when I first started off in this industry, were taken aback by just how outward I was about my relationship, bringing my partner to events. A lot of people don't do that. Like, they don't bring their, boyfriends or even say the word boyfriend. Everybody says the word partner, right? Like, you heard me earlier say partner, but like at this point, he's my man. But when I would say boyfriend, and I would actively say boyfriend. I never said significant other or partner. I was never fucking vague with it. I always was like, oh yeah, my boyfriend. It was like, boyfriend? I'm like, yes. It's a man. He has a dick. Like, I'm not going to sit up here and sugarcoat it. And I think that that's something that is often expected from queer people. And it's not that the queer people who do that and folks in the LGBTQIA community do that because they're personally embarrassed. Some probably are, but a lot of them feel like this is a mode of security. They can't be outward because they fear the consequences. But that's because we live in a society that treats heterosexuality as a default. And there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, there's the people trying to make the whole religious argument, which is so tired. I just think it's interesting how everybody wakes up and they're a Christian and all of a sudden wake up and have all these strong religious views when they see gay people out here living their lives. But all of a sudden, they don't have any of that Christian religiosity and it's against my religion any other time when they're out here doing what they fucking do. Which is why I look at folks who have weaponized religion. They've weaponized it as a way to suppress and oppress other people. There's no other way to describe it, because if the only time you have strong opinions is, and then you use what I call the religion card, because that's really, everybody talking about the race card, the this card. No. It's the religion card. That's a real card. That's a real card because people are using it to justify persecuting other people who don't have similar beliefs or don't, express their beliefs in the same way that they share, right? Because there are people that are Christian or LGBTQIA. I'm personally not religious. I'm a proud deist, and that's not an atheist. A deist is someone who believes in some type of force, but they don't believe that it has, a certain control over the future and the role. So I do believe there is a force that brings us together. I just don't know if I think it's fair enough to say that there is this, they have a role in how the world has operated. I don't believe, because if I believe that, right? See, this is what controversial. This is Ernestly speaking. Look, I was raised Pentecostal. I grew up with people who spoke tongue. My grandmother was a tongue-speaking evangelist and a devout Christian, a devout Pentecostal. And I love my grandmother. My grandmother was very great to me, and she was a wonderful woman. And I have family who, that was the faith, Church of God in Christ, Children of Kojic, for those who don't know. Okay, and those who do listen to the podcast and Kojic, we always joke and tell stories about that world. But and it was not a cult, y'all. Okay, I mean, people might think it's a cult. Some people think it's a cult. I don't think it was a cult at all. Nothing like that. But I just remember thinking to myself that the way in which people talk about faith and like divine intervention, which I tether on divine intervention, but I think that's because of just society and the way people talk about the American dream and miracles, right? But I've always come to this thinking that if God, like if I'm to believe that there is a God or there is some type of supernatural force, which I do believe in some sense of intelligent design. I do believe that there is some hand that did play a role in this in some type of way. Because people want to believe the Big Bang Theory, and I don't want to say it doesn't exist, but I just wonder, like, okay, if there's the Big Bang Theory, well, what was the bang? But then someone asks, well, who created the bang? So maybe the bang exists because the bang creates the bang that made the bang. Something fucking happened. What the fuck happened, right? Maybe we don't know. It's so weird. But you kind of would just assume boom. But then who was the boom? Who made the boom? It just boom? Something had to boom. Something had to fucking start. Maybe it wasn't like Anyway, so interesting enough, when I went to college and also just prior to that, I remember this conversation around dentalism or something, and I was reading about Thoreau and all of these different people believed in transcendentalism and all these different thoughts about nature and the way that the world speaks. And for me, I'm not fully departed from this sense that there's nothing that came, that there is some type of creation. I don't know if I think gendering it, giving it this persona might be a little too far-fetched, for me at least. But I believe that there is some type of force, right? That creates these things and whatnot. And do I believe in reincarnation? Possibly. I mean, there's a bunch of people out here looking like John Legend or look like John Legend back in the day or look like, others and things. I don't know. But for me, the real change in my perspective around this was centered in this idea that if you are to believe in Christianity or any faith and believe that God is playing a role or having his hand in all of these types of things, then the current God that we would be praising would be a racist God. But then you look at the image to which God would have been shaped. God would have been shaped as in art, right? Is always a white man. Jesus is a white man. That's how this is framed. And so then you would have to ask the question, in what world does this God create a society in which Black and brown people are persecuted for hundreds of years, that rich people are evil, the evil people of the world oftentimes contain money and wealth and power, and that they get to abuse people time in and time out, and that the only salvation for those who are poor are when they're dead, because heaven is not on earth or can't be on earth, or any level of joy and pleasure can't be on earth, only through death, which then questions the point of what is life, or what's the purpose of those people having life, if it was only meant to go through pain and agony to then die and then get salvation. Why not just go straight there? I just personally wrestle with that. And I think to myself, what God or what kind of God would create that type of reality? And that's not a question other people have to answer for me. Don't tell me. Please don't get in my DMs and try to preach to me about it. No, don't. I'm not trying to persuade people any kind of way. I'm just telling you my personal perception on it. And I'm not saying anyone else's faith is wrong. I'm just saying that's how I see it. And for me, deism, which I believe there's a God or a higher being. I think the word God is saying the word. I mean, God is using it as an innocuous term, just God, whatever God is. God could be a dolphin. God could be, particles. God could be something, right? To me, I just feel that believing that there was a creator that did do intelligent design, that did create this earth to get things in motion, I believe that this God does not intervene in the world as aggressively. They don't bend the arc. They don't play a role. They created it, and then they, let the world take care, quote unquote, of itself. And in some sense, the world is pretty much somewhat taking care of itself, but pretty fucked up if you think about it, like the way the environment work. And maybe the creator will intervene once that is done. Who knows? But I just feel, though, that makes more sense to me in a way that I believe that, okay, a creator created a universe and world with which that was it. They created it, they let it be, and then people went and did their thing. And then I can say to myself, okay, well then that makes sense, because what would have been the purpose of life if said creator created everything in motion only to keep intervening in it every 5 seconds? I mean, what was the point of making something if there wasn't any agency or free will or society? I don't know. I just wrestle with that. And so to me, I am clearly not I'm not agnostic, or atheist for that matter. I think I sway more to deism, which I do believe in some sense of creator, but I don't believe in the intervention of such. And so, yeah, I think that's my, and I also, I just, like, people say, well, what about when didn't you just make lamb for Easter? Look, I'm a what I would call a social celebrator of holidays, like how some people say they're culturally Jewish. I guess I'm culturally Christian because of my just Southern Black background upbringing. So yes, I celebrate Christmas, but not really wholly in that kind of way. I just kind of like get gifts and take pictures, and my folks are very much so Christian, and that's live right. And I do celebrate Easter because I just like the food. I don't know. I don't really have any much of a religious tie to it personally, but I think that there's some people that are very much, they believe it. You know what I'm saying? And there's differences. So atheists don't believe in anything, right? Agnostic is a person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the existence of nature of God or anything beyond material phenomena. So they're a person who claim neither faith nor disbelief in God. So they're basically skeptical, but they're not like, just actively saying, no, this does or doesn't exist. They kind of are doing the passive, I consider it the passive aggressive take on it. But no, I'm not agnostic. But yes, that all being said, congrats, Lil Nas X, on your success. And, looks like going down brings you up. So another sad news, well, that wasn't sad news, but another news, this news is kind of sad. DMX, who is a prolific rapper, an icon, okay, because they don't make them like they used to in rap. Stop, drop in iconic, okay? Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. Like, listen, this man's music, I was 11 years old. I was 11. I grew up listening to this man's music because it was always in the car. It was the culture. It was the early 2000s. It was the beginning of the new millennium. And there was a rapper that made music that spoke to the high pace, fast pace, excitement of a new millennium in a way that was still gritty and hardcore, but yet still social. I mean, how many men do you know can name like about 10 or 15 women that they've dated in one song and literally make countless Black women feel heard in a rap verse. I don't know. Like DMX is a phenomenon. Okay, it's a different type of phenomenon. It's not like, I mean, he was. Listen, before Drake was, listen, if DMX was out in the era of social media, DMX would be bigger than Drake, and even more talented. Arguably, I find DMX has made the type of hits that you're still listening to, the type of rap music that has this really deep, sentimental, poetic side to it, but also has a very approachable, viral, fun energy. His music was played in commercials and movies. And I mean, he's had consistent, countless #1 albums. Like, have sold millions of records and was able to keep his grittiness, but also at the same time have mass popular appeal, which isn't very common for a lot of rappers today. I think a lot of rappers are trying to emulate the DMX package, right? Like I see like a DaBaby. I feel like he wants to be in that type of image and packaging, right? This hardcore rapper or hard to a degree, but then also can make these very, melodic, catchy songs. I don't know. I've noticed there's a pattern, but DMX was a blueprint of a certain type of rapper. And of course, the New York appeal and the other, the East Coast swagger of his whole packaging also helped. But he was just, Rough Riders, Eve from Philly. That whole group. I keep telling people there were so many different types of like cliques. Like everybody talks about Cash Money and there was a No Limit with Master P. They had their little contingency. Meg Thee Stallion has Meg Thee Stallion really has a clique. She got that little Rock Nation group, but they're not like the clique. Like Cash Money was there. Rockefeller Records. They had their little core group. And then you had this group with like Gucci Mane and all of them in the South. Like the little trap group, they had that little contingency. Lil Jon, the East Side Boys, they had their little group with the BMM clique or whatever. It's just so many cliques in hip hop, and I just think it's funny because everyone want to act like this is like a new thing. Even Cardi B has her own little contingency, right? With like those trash ass Migos and those guys. And then Sweetie was in that, and we all know what happened last week. But, there's all these contingencies, and that's always how I feel like the music industry, hip-hop music industry has. So DMX belongs to Rough Riders. Oh, and you have Murder Inc. How can I forget Murder Inc.? Ashanti and Ja Rule and, all of them. Irv Gotti. And I think Charlie Baltimore was in that mix a little bit. And then you had, Bad Boys, which was Puff Daddy and Biggie and that crew. Then you had Death Row. Can't forget Death Row, right? You had Tupac and Suge Knight and Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre. And then you got the little Aftermath Slim Shady group that came after that, which had 50 Cent and Eminem and Dr. Dre came back to that. Everybody, it was cliques all over the place. Oh, how could I forget Swisher House? Yeah, I'm from Houston. How could I forget the Trap? Mike Jones, Paul Wall, Slim Thug, Chameleon was kind of in there. You can't forget these cliques. Yeah, that was a thing. Still a thing, but not as strong as it used to be. Now they got the Rick Ross group, which is Maybach Music. That little group that's trying to do something, for better or for worse. There was So Def. They had the Brad and Bow Wow and Jermaine Dupri, little mini core groups. But these were the boys. These were the hardcore heavy players of hip hop back in the day. And growing up, you just knew the music, the sound. It was very much different sounds. And DMX had his own energy and was able to do some great work. The news of his life support and his overdose has been just very much a reminder to people that opioid use, drug use, addiction in this type of way is still an issue in the Black community. Even though a lot of media attention around substance abuse in this type of way has a lot of times been centered on white people, because when people talk about opioids, they think about, heroin, or they're only thinking about needles. But like Percocets, fit in that. And we know some rapper who likes to talk about Percocet, Molly Percocet in his music. We have seen a lot of rappers OD lately. A lot of these rappers have been having overdoses young and promising, and then they just die. A lot of people are just not having that conversation about it anymore. And this is really weird because there was a moment where it was just nothing but gun violence. And there's a lot of rappers who are still being shot and killed, right? That's happening. But there's just been this interesting wave of OD, right? Overdoses, and then gun violence around a lot of prominent young rappers. And then DMX has been struggling with addiction throughout his career. And there was a lot of interventions and stuff. But I say all this to say that to the people who have been actively criminalizing those who have issues with substance abuse and issues with addiction, this is the time where you shut the fuck up and you figure this shit out. Meaning, you need to reprioritize your thinking around addiction. That we criminalize people who are, struggling with drug use. Like, this is a real addiction. And it took white people in Kensington and Philadelphia and parts of the country that were struggling with prescription drugs for people to build empathy. And everyone talks about how the crack epidemic in the 90s and in the 80s and whatever, there was no love for Black folks. No, it was not. It absolutely was not. But to the people who are trying to call for that same type of hatred towards people who are struggling with now, I want you to understand that Black and brown people are largely impacted by the opioid epidemic. In many ways, disproportionately more than white people. The problem is that there is an overwhelming number of white people who are being hit with this in ways that we had not seen in previous years or documented, that are now becoming the face of this disease, which is now prompting somewhat of a media attention. But still not enough is happening. I mean, when you think about the conversation around safe injection sites, that shit got shot down by residents who just really felt like the safe injection sites were going to come in and promote this. But like, what happened? Okay, so you want to stop drug paraphernalia. People can't get needles, clean needles. What are people going to do with those needles when they get them? If they don't get a clean needle and they're struggling with addiction, they're going to use a dirty needle that can infect them. And you're having this happen during a pandemic where COVID is already running rampant. You got people out here who don't want to have safe injection sites because they think that promotes drug use. Well, what do you recommend? What do you fucking recommend instead? What do you suggest? And this type of mindset, there are quote unquote progressives that are trying to change that narrative and focus. And while that is notable, and while that is something that should be talked about and debated amongst people are still dying. And these numbers are not declining. And what's happening is that it's also, have been found to spike drug use, drug violence, gang-related drug violence, and other issues that keep pushing problems that we have yet to really be aggressive on. So I just think there's a lot of hypocrisy there, that those people who are saying things like, we need to stop this carnage. You don't see the connection between providing resources for people struggling with drug addiction to reducing crime and areas that are often faced with blight. You don't see the connection there? Okay. Guess you don't. But I just hope that people, whatever ends up happening to DMX, there are people there are reports that saying the family are going to say their final goodbyes, that he's in a vegetative state, that there's just a lot of matters about people are preparing for the worst. I think this is a moment for legislators, hopefully, those who are Black, those who have had these very remedial responses and reactions to substance abuse issues and safe injection sites and things, that they start to reconsider their stances. Because as long as they continue to be misinformed and have such a very negative thought around providing necessary treatment and help, it's not going to change. So that's important. Speaking of things that's not going to change, or should change, but has not changed, I'll say that better. There's been this real issue. So last week, there was a story about two officers, actually. A longtime veteran and then a former cop. They're both brothers. Basically, they got arrested after last summer attacking a 27-year-old man. We don't know their race, we don't know their name. We know the officers are white, or one of the officers and the ex-officers, but officers nonetheless. The two men were white, older men, that attacked this 27-year-old young man who who lives with Asperger's, which is a form of autism. He's on autism spectrum, and so he's autistic and he has Asperger's. They claim what makes this horrific was that this happened last August, and of course this happened right after all of the George Floyd protests and everything of that nature. What makes this very upsetting was this was late at night. Allegedly, right? I'm just going to say allegedly, but this is what according to police report. This man was, at a store. These two men approached him. These two men told him that they were part of the neighborhood town watch. This happened in Northeast Philadelphia, and for folks that know about Northeast Philadelphia, that's the more whiter side of Philadelphia, with a lot of blue collar union workers and arguably some of the more racist parts, even though racism is all over Philadelphia. But notably, this area of Philadelphia, the Northeast, is very, very white, blue collar land. Not very diverse in certain parts, and very much so led by some of the Republican constituencies. People who are support Republicans. Our Republican city councilman is in, who's a district rep, is in the Northeast. So that just shows you the side of Philadelphia we're talking about. Northwest is very different. North Philly is very different. West Philly is very different, clearly. And then, of course, the South is very kind of mixy and divided. Because there was an area in the district in the South, in South Philly, that supported Trump in the midst of everything else going on. Fucking weird. So anyway, they allegedly told this individual they were part of the neighborhood town watch, and they tried to basically apprehend him. They chased him down. Eventually, he contacted his parents, which were heard on the phone, where they had apprehended him. Basically, they did their own citizens, I guess, arrest or whatnot, but not even an arrest, but they basically got this man, started to violently attack him, punch him, bruise him. They really beat the fuck out of him. And he was on the phone with his mother when they were approaching him, and his mother could be overheard. His mother overheard, them in the background. He was telling them, like, hey, they're messing with me. They're pulling my legs. They're coming in for me. But all of this was being described in this police report. Dave was charged for misdemeanor crimes. And pretty much they tried to claim that this man was trying to carjack cars in the area and that he was a suspect, but that wasn't true. The man has no criminal record, and he was not carjacking cars or any of that nature. That was a lie that they stated. This guy who was there was an inspector, one of the men who was arrested, because these two men are brothers, by the way. One of the men who was arrested, he is a 30-year veteran inspector of the city. He's currently suspended. The police commissioner, Daniel Outlaw, suspended him. And then the other guy's placed on leave, but apparently the other brother is apparently, worked for Attorney General Josh Shapiro's office, and apparently he's placed on leave. But they haven't been fired, which is very, very interesting. And Josh Shapiro apparently is running for governor. Interesting. Very, very telling. But anyway, he is, they've been charged. It's just been a ridiculous case. It doesn't help that this month is Autism Awareness, but also Acceptance Month. People in the autistic community have been saying that to say the word Autism Awareness Month is to continue to make the focus be fixated on parents who have children with autism, rather than autism acceptance is fixated and focused on accepting those living with autism. And so one of the things that have been talked about is that there used to be, I don't know if anybody has seen, you've probably seen autism symbols. The symbols for the autistic community often has been a puzzle piece. And those who I've seen in activists and advocates, those who have been living with autism in the community, they're saying they don't want people to use the puzzle piece anymore as a reference, because that's oftentimes connected to an organization called Autism Speaks, that apparently have a history of prioritizing parents with autism and not focusing and prioritizing people living with autism. And so that puzzle piece is connected to Autism Speaks, which is a very known autism advocacy organization. But many activists who I've spoken to that live with autism say that the puzzle piece in that organization, and this is their opinion. I don't live with autism. I don't know for myself, but their take has been that the organization is focused more on the parents and that the parents raising children with autism have taken up a lot of space in these conversations. And so they want to reprioritize those actually living with autism to be front and center. So they have recommended the infinity symbol, which is a beautiful symbol. And that it's like it's a rainbow, but it's an infinity, an infinity symbol, but it's a rainbow infinity. So it's pretty dope. The symbol is. So from that experience and learning from that, it's been interesting to see the reactions. So here's the part that's interesting to me. And this is just an observation. I wrote this in op-ed for Philadelphia Magazine, and it's called "Philly Politicians Are Condemning Derek Chauvin. Why are they silent on local police brutality?" That was the question I posed in this column. Here's the thing. Last week during the Derek Chauvin trial, which I keep telling people it's not the George Floyd trial, it is the Derek Chauvin trial, because this is the man who stood on the neck of George Floyd for 9 minutes and 26 seconds, not 8 minutes and 46 seconds, but longer. It was 9 minutes. Over 9 minutes, this pig kept his knee planted, took a knee on George Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes. So this man completely could not breathe and died in cold blood, in people's face. So there's been people, the politicians locally have been speaking about this, sharing posts, reactions from city council to state reps to state senators, have been talking about this on their social media platforms. They've really been making a point to discuss this issue, this incident, and everything that's connected to it. And it's a very serious, it's a very, very serious case and everything. But interesting enough, over the weekend they were posting about, Autism Acceptance Month, Awareness Month, just spreading all of these posts. But nobody except one man, and I will tell you who he is, spoke about George Floyd. Like not George Floyd. No one spoke about the incident, the case, this police brutality case, like this fucked up case. No one shared any post that talked about it. And I was baffled by that. I was like, how is it that no one else is saying anything about this case, given that this has been going on? Like, I'm shook. You know what I'm saying? It's wow. It's a lot going on that has people really cutting up. And I think that says a lot that this is happening, because a lot of people really, really, really believed that there was a difference here, that this could be something else. But there's just a lot just to unpack. I can gather myself. Politicians spent a lot of time talking about George Floyd last week. Local politicians. They didn't say anything about this case. People made all these passionate posts and talked about how George Floyd should still be alive. And I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. Of course I fucking agree with that. I agree about that 1,000, right? But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, how is there so much cognitive dissonance? How come we can only talk about George, we talk about this police brutality in a very larger sense all across the country. But in Philadelphia, we don't see that same energy. There is literally a man A 27-year-old man living with autism in this city who was attacked by a former cop and a current cop, a veteran, lied to about their identities. This shit was malicious. These men are currently arrested, and yet we did not see this outpour from the mayor, from any of the major players. No one said anything. But then there are the same people who could talk about, we could talk about Autism Awareness Month and Autism, Acceptance Month. But here in our backyard, these two things intersect right now. And no one's saying anything except one man. And that man is Derek Green, council member Derek Green. He's council member at large for the city of Philadelphia. Derek Green took to not just social media, but issued a statement that was very poignant and very much so very major, okay? Did a statement condemning the police violence that took place in Philadelphia. And he's a Black man, and he also has a son living with autism. And he said, and I don't want to make sure that I get this right, but he gave a statement, sent a whole press release, okay? He pulled out the bells and whistles, y'all. He wanted people to know where he stood on this. He said, quote, "As an outspoken advocate for the disability community, and most importantly, the father of a young man on the autism spectrum, I stand up for the people like this 27-year-old victim and others who struggle to or are unable to speak for themselves and say that this behavior will not be tolerated by any law enforcement official, regardless of rank. We continue to set ourselves back with every instance of police brutality, every arrest that occurs by way of racial profiling or stereotyping, and the mistreatment by police of neurodiverse individuals due to lack of due diligence and effective training, or just blatant disregard for humanity." And he concluded, "We must be better and do better than this here at home and in every other American city." Enough said. Yeah, that's how you give a fucking statement. So, every, blue moon, I, on this show, apply my communication management skills and look at a statement and craft it and tell you all, what's the chunk and dissect if it's good or if it's bad. And, we've done this with tweets and celebrities. But I just want to say with his statement, it's perfect. It's very well written. His communications team, whoever was behind it, did a good job. I think I know his communications director, who's also getting a master's right now, currently at Temple in communication management. How you doing? But this statement is, it's very much more text and it's more, more information there, but it is flawless because what it does is that it's got emotion. His emotional investment in it, but he's also able to really define his position, his take in a way that is crystal clear, unflinching, unnerved, unbothered, outspoken, and he speaks truth to power in a way that also identifies what the real elephants in the room are, and also just spell out how inhumane and disrespectful it is. It's a flawless statement, and it's very touching. And when I read it, it just, I get press releases by elected officials every single day. And sometimes on Sundays. That's how crazy some of these people are. And I would say that oftentimes I read those statements and I'm just like, it's the same old jargon. Helen Gim with her own jargon, her big old, Instapot statements. Some of her statements, some of her statements are a little just like, do they just copy and paste this stuff and change out the words in community and say the same damn thing? Sometimes some of these statements made by these elected officials are repetitive, but this just hit differently. And the best part to me was when he said, "We must be better and do better than this here at home and in every other American city." So it was like he tied it in, which is the fact that this has to be addressed Okay, like, yes, George Floyd matters, and we need to be talking about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, but we also got to bring this in our own backyard because we are a major American city, and this shit is happening here. And the fact that no one except him really said something about this speaks volumes. There's no way they did not know. He is a state rep. He is a city council member. His colleagues definitely have saw that statement. And for them not to amplify it, for them not to really go after the local police in this way, in this act of brutality, it just says a lot. So I was very disappointed that while people were talking about George Floyd, and they should, that let me just make some clarity because people will misinterpret this. Let me be clear about this. The critique is not that the people supported George Floyd, because we all support George Floyd. We all should. The critique is that elected officials, local elected officials, will love to deflect on the local issues happening in our own backyard to fixate on national issues, and then sometimes try to use their positions on national issues as a way to be some passive response to the local issues they don't speak on. So there's a lot of elected officials that will talk about police injustice nationally, but they will never call out the FOP locally in Philadelphia. They will never go after the officers who are doing some ridiculous shit in this city, in this town. They often just don't say anything about it. And yet they like to placate to progressives, oftentimes white liberals, right, that are wanting them to perform whatever they think is quote unquote woke, but also not lose the sight of the very neoliberal capitalist framework that is rooted in them being silent about political contributors and folks that are aligned with the local policing in the city. It's a very, very nuanced situation. But pretty much, long story short, they like to talk that shit nationally, but never talk that shit in the house. And that's why, it's very hard for me to take them seriously. And it doesn't help that last week also, Walter Wallace's family, Walter Wallace Jr., the man who last October was shot 10 times. Okay, y'all? 10 times. Okay. After having a mental health crisis that involved him, a family dispute in his neighborhood. His family was trying to calm him down. Other people in the neighborhood tried to intervene. He had a knife in his hand, but it wasn't, he literally brought a knife to a gunfight as two officers who had actual guns on them basically felt like the only way to apprehend him or attempt to address it was to shoot him 10 times to death. And arguments were like, why wasn't he tased? Because officers didn't have tasers on them. So now the family is suing the two officers for a wrongful death lawsuit. Don't know why they won't sue the city. Don't know why they won't sue the police department. But every family, everybody has their own thing. But they're suing these two officers, for wrongful deaths. It's a wrongful death suit. So we'll see what happens. But that also happened last week as well, which tells you that this city has some real problems, and everyone is pretty much, saying, look over here. But we should actually be looking at ourselves and how we respond, because it's just sad. There was a lot of media press around both of those instances. So it's not the media's fault at all. But for whatever reason, these local cats, these local elected officials, they're silenced. So good job to Councilmember Derek Green. All right. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to go with this, because I'm writing this piece for the Daily Beast, because I love writing for national and local at the same damn time. Y'all, some of y'all probably catch my piece I wrote for the Grill last week about my Clubhouse experiences, which is always fun. I don't know. I'm before I get into this piece and this character, what is going on with Clubhouse? I'm not. Listen, the Clubhouse moment happened, and I feel like it's fading, y'all. I'm just feeling like it's fading a little bit. It looks like it's fading. Are we finally over Facebook? Are we finally over Clubhouse? I don't go on Clubhouse like that. I remember when Clubhouse first, when I first got Clubhouse, I was addicted for the first couple of weeks. And then now I only go on if I have something really major or big I want to talk about. But it's just very like, I don't know. It's just giving me, Reddit energy. It's giving me, black entrepreneur wannabe fake it till you make it entrepreneur Facebook group, but went on Clubhouse and the people got on there and really got really more annoying. It's giving me that energy. It's giving me some of these people who are like, aspiring artists, starving musicians, folks that want to like, get their big break. It's giving me celebrities that we shouldn't give a fuck about, that's on there just to start shit and try to remind us about how relevant they are. It's giving me a lot of that. And so I'm just been kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this. That being said, though, I'm still going on for events that people call me to be on. So if they want me to be on Clubhouse, I'll make a Clubhouse appearance. But I'm just not on there anymore just for the sake of being on there. I typically go on if I have something important to say. I was on there, recently talking about Sean King, and it got a little viral. You know what I'm saying? The white man, Sean King, decided he wanted to post about, everything. So let's talk about James Charles. A lot of you all may not know who James Charles is. So for my Gen Xers and Boomers, you're going to learn something today. So James Charles is white. He's gay. He is 21 years old. He'll be 22 in May. He is a makeup artist that's going viral. He's been viral for years. He was 5 years ago in 2016. He's been around for a minute though. Oh my God. He's been around for a minute. In 2016, he became the first male ambassador for CoverGirl. So he wears makeup. So he's a makeup artist, and he's very into makeup, and he wears makeup. He was a CoverGirl's ambassador, which was the first time that ever happened. They don't mostly women. Not all of their ambassadors have been women, like with Katy Perry, right? But he was the first male to ever do it, which was an interesting progressive step for CoverGirl in their own way. So he did that. He's got deals with a group called Morphe Cosmetics. He's also got a collaboration with like Chipotle, because Chipotle decided that they want to do palettes inspired by their food. I don't know what the fuck that is, but that's, again, he's got money. He's got some major, endorsements, social media influencer type shit. He gets checks. He's worth millions of fucking dollars. He has like 25 million subscribers on YouTube. He has over 3 billion views of his videos. For somebody who is, again, not a musician or a singer, this is a pretty big damn deal. Like he's pretty much somebody that, matters in this industry. And, there's other makeup artists on Instagram and YouTube, like Jeffree Star, Tati Westbrook. There's these people that just like teach you how to make makeup. As someone who does not wear makeup, I didn't know who these people really were until I started to see them break into mainstream. But the reason why I decided to talk about this situation, because people act like I don't know how to keep that same energy, which I stopped believing people because I keep that same energy everywhere. But basically what happened with this guy, okay, is that he has been in the news lately because of the fact that there's been speculation that, well, not even speculation, there's been constant accusations that he's been talking to underage. He's been talking to underage men. Some of them are gay, some of them are not. But in these situations, recently, these are underage, I believe, queer men. And like 16-year-old boys that are like 17 or whatnot. And he's been in their DMs, and he's been exchanging nude pictures, and they've been exposing it. So it's not even an allegation of the sexual content. Let me be very clear. He has been sending nude pictures to underage boys. He has been soliciting other types of racy commentary with underage boys. That's just a fact. What he has done in the past, and what he's consistently have done, is claimed that he didn't know their age, or they didn't share his age, even though there has been rebuttals that if you looked on these sites, some of these men have put their ages up on sites and websites Some of them have said that they have shared their age with him, and that didn't stop him from doing it. So those are the allegations at this point. Was the allegations whether or not this was an intentional situation? But he's been having his issues since 2019. Okay, and he's had allegations as recent as last month, and it's gotten to a point where the shit is just like, bruh, like what are we doing here, right? And he's consistently keeps making these apology videos, but this time it got really weird because he frames it as like he was somebody who was, not paying attention to the blind sights, he wasn't paying attention to the alarms, and that, in this pursuit of wanting a relationship, he just wasn't thinking. I call bullshit. I personally think, this is my opinion, that the behavior he's doing is very predatory, and that it's interesting because no one seems to really give a fuck. He got, oddly enough, the Teen Choice Award for Best Male Influencer on Social or something like that. How ironic. And it's just weird because he continues to have his endorsements, and he really hasn't lost any major followers or really had any major suffering that was caused from this ongoing pile. And I was always asking myself that in the Me Too era, it just seems like a lot of LGBTQ people who were victims or whatever were not necessarily protected in the mainstream. And when we talk about, Me Too in this regard, we're talking about people who have power. Like James Charles has power. He might be young, but he has a lot of power and influence on social media, and he is a major influencer. And he's being accused of really utilizing his fame and using his fame to do shit that looks like he's grooming these younger men. And so, having these types of functions around, this presence, and he tries to talk about the power dynamic, that being that whether it's unintentional or not, he tries to take accountability, tries to play the whole, I didn't know, but what I did was wrong, but I didn't know. But it's like, okay, are you going to need to take accountability or not? You got to figure out that shit out. But what's become really weird is that we're just letting people, what the fuck? It's creepy as shit. And what's annoying is that in the Me Too era, like I said before, I mean, with the exception of fucking Kevin Spacey, which let's talk about this real quick. Kevin Spacey, who's an actor who I used to love, y'all. He was one of my favorite actors. Still annoyed and disappointed and disgusted, right? Loved him in House of Cards. Of course, House of Cards is a great show. But he was so incredible. He was so incredible in American Beauty, which was one of my favorite movies with Annette Bening and him as this insufferable couple who just, the movie was great. I always thought that, in my mind, Kevin Spacey could have been gay. I don't think he had a wife, he had children or anything. I just always thought he could possibly be. And even the characters he always played characters that are bisexual or gay or something. Or bi-curious or whatever the case was. He never, he never had a problem playing those characters. I mean, when I saw American Beauty, that was one of my first, major films I saw where I was like, oh, a man is kissing another man. There's this, intimacy here. And let me clarify, his character was not queer. Okay, this movie came out in 99. So if you ain't seen it, spoiler alerts when movies are over 20 years old. But it's still iconic. And a man named Sam Mendes directed the film, which, FYI, for film buffs, he was married to Kate Winslet. So they were both an Oscar-winning couple. And he won Best Director for his directorial debut. That's a big fucking deal. Many filmmakers would kill to get an Oscar for their first film they ever directed. He goes off to then film Revolutionary Road, in which his wife, Kate Winslet, they're no longer married now, but his wife at the time, Kate Winslet, is literally making out and getting it in with her, co-star again, when they come back. Leonardo DiCaprio, y'all. So, Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio did not just do Titanic, but they come back, literally 10 years later, over 10 years later, around 10 years later, to do Revolutionary Road with Kathy Bates and with, some other great actors. And they killed it. I love that film. It's it's not Titanic. Okay, let me be clear, but it's a very great period piece, and they just give you the drama. And even though Michael Shannon, who gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor, which is kind of weird. I mean, he plays, it's a good character, it's a good role. It's a very uh, it's a character study type role. But the rest of the actors in the film, like I said, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, they brought it, and I just, yeah, she had a great year that year. This is like around 2009. She goes off to win Best Actress for The Reader, which is great because Kate Winslet was like, Homegirl was just climbing for an Oscar, and she finally got it. And then Leo, a couple years later, gets his Oscar. I mean, they both been doing great work. And like honestly, when is Amy Adams gonna get her fucking Oscar? But let's be clear, she needs to get hers after Glenn Close gets her Oscar. And I still have hope that Glenn Close can win Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars for her role in Hillbilly Elegy. But I digress. I just wanted to say that. I just really want Glenn Close to win an Oscar. And then Amy Adams is long overdue and she's next. And then I won't complain. At that point, whoever else gets Oscars, I'll be whatever. But I just need them two to get Oscars. And let me be clear, these are actors who consistently keep putting in the fucking work and just has not been getting it. Like, Amy Adams has been getting nominated every other year for like the past 10-something years. She's been putting in that fucking work and she has yet to get one. I mean, she's giving you iconic films. Justice for Amy Adams. Yes. And justice for Glenn Close. Let's be very clear. Glenn Close is first. She's been robbed. She should have won for The Wife. Olivia Colman could have won something else. Okay, vent over. These are the things that trigger me. The first world triggers. And the only time you're going to hear me argue for white women in this type of way in the industry. But still. So anyway, Kevin Spacey decides that he wants to come out the closet at the same time where he was facing allegations for being a predator and creep towards an underage Anthony Rapp, who's another actor who also was in the movie Rent and did a pretty good job. He came out, and then since then he lost Netflix. He got taken out of a movie that was called All the Money in the World, and it got replaced by Christopher Plummer, I believe, who killed it, the late Christopher Plummer. And, a lot of other changes happened. And it was just so fucked up that, all this was happening with a group of people that was really trying to, change the narrative. And they were doing some great work. Like, I mean, let's be clear. House of Cards went on without him. And I thought that, Robin Wright killed it as First Lady Underwood. But it was still painful that it had to go down like this. It was very cringeworthy that this had to even happen to him. But he did it. I mean, he was accused of doing it, and that kind of behavior was it just disappointed me. So outside of Kevin Spacey, who technically decided that he wanted to come out at the same time he was being accused, I was very much so disgusted and angry that there has been no one else really from the LGBTQ community who has been held accountable or been talked about. Like, it's been such a very heteronormative, cis heteronormative focus on straight men and women. The victims, why is it the question becomes, why does James Charles, which is just so weird, he has two first names or two last names actually. Why is James Charles able to pretty much get away with this without much of a fuss? And I think the answer really is because he's a white gay man and his victims are of the same sex, the same gender. And because of that, there seems to be this chip in people, because I got to keep it 100, where people just don't care at that point as much. How do I know this? Is because this has become a pattern. No one cares when LGBTQ people talk about sexual abuse or that kind of stuff by other LGBTQ people. They just don't care the same way unless it's a situation where, there is a predatory, quote, unquote, gay man who goes after a young, presumably cishet male. So like the sexual abuse at the Catholic Church, even though that was people turned a blind eye of that, but like there was a shock and an alarmness by some folks about in the national spotlight around doing it, right? Spotlight inspired, the movie Spotlight was inspired by those stories, right? But we don't see these types of stories where it's queer person violating queer person in a way that warrants public outrage. But people don't care about those victims because there is a contingency of people that still believe, oh, they probably wanted it. Well, their lifestyle was so perverted. Of course those things happen. These are things I've heard, by the way. I'm telling you the bullshit I've heard from people. Of course, this, of course, like, aren't they all like hypersexual? Well, how did this person not know that this person was violated? The kind of lifestyle they live would suggest that this is what they do. I mean, how do you draw the line, quote unquote? It's just a lot of excuses or dismissal or people who just don't really give a fuck because they don't give a fuck about queer people. So if you don't care about queer people and queer issues, then you're not going to care if there's a Me Too experience that happens to them. That's pretty much what is being hinted at or suggested in the very dismal or lackluster press that comes with situations like this when they occur. And how do I know this? Is because in Philadelphia, there was a drag performer. His name is Mimi I'm First. And he was a part of RuPaul's Drag Race, did All Stars, big known name in the drag community. Like everybody knows him in the drag community. He was a legend or whatever. Well, I did this bombshell story that came out in 2018. Oh my goodness, it's been a minute, y'all. I've been in the game for a minute. Did this story. This story came out in May of 2018, and basically, I spoke to countless people who accused him of sexual harassment, even though he admitted to the behavior. In the story, he confesses, which was pretty of a big damn deal. Because normally, you'll get the no comment or this person won't talk or whatever. But he actually admitted to doing it. But he basically had a lot of, there was several of performers. So let me back this up. After he left Mimi, after Mimi I'm First, his real name is Brandon Chapman. After he left, RuPaul's Drag Race and went off, he stayed in Philadelphia. He's a Philadelphia-based performer. Did a lot of drag shows and brunches and events like that, drag brunches. And the straight people, you all probably heard of him and his performance name. He basically, built off of that RuPaul Drag Race buzz, did some national appearances and some other collaborations, but stayed in Philly, blew up in Philadelphia. Of course, he was already in Philly, but was the big main diva of the drag scene and really got booked and, got, major reviews and promotions, did a play that he tried to do, which was like wow within itself. But really tried to make a name for himself and really had a strong following and groups of people that was into him. I mean, he even was able to cross over to doing plays and that were citywide plays that got buzz and attention. I mean, I think there was one production he did that I forget which it was. It wasn't Jesus. It wasn't. Jesus Christ Superstar, but it was another major play that it was a Hedwig and Angry Inch, and he did the remake of that show, but played into the main character, I believe, and so there was a lot of he had a lot of buzz going on for him, and he was on some boards and some other groups and things of that nature, or was a part of some collectives, some creative collectives and stuff, and like I said, this was a known name. Well, these performers he did a contest called Drag Wars, which was kind of like a RuPaul's Drag Race, but a Philly version where they had like competitions and people competing against each other. And it was like a weekly show and people paid to see it in the neighborhood. And so these performers are novice. These are like up and coming, drag performers that, are trying to get their feet wet in the business. And he allegedly was basically using his power and his influence to target them in ways asking for, asking for phone sex or sexual cyber chat conversations. And some of them felt like they were in many ways coerced into doing it because of the fact that, he was someone of influence. They wanted to make a good impression. Some of them thought it was just a one-time thing, but then it became more and more and more and more. And next thing throughout the competition, there was just like, they felt like they were getting retaliated against. Once they stopped or there was a disagreement, they felt blacklisted. They felt like people in the community, once they started to speak out, will cut them off. And the story came out. There was lots of chatter that day when I wrote the story, and there was a lot of mixed stuff. And he really played the victim. Chapman did. Mimi, I'm first, and really did this whole I'm not doing well, and try to make all these justifications that were subtle about his behavior. Tried to do the whole I take accountability, but then at the same time did the I'm depressed, and just really was giving people this fear where the energy shifted not on the victims and how the victims should feel, but on the, oh, I hope they're okay and they don't do anything to themselves kind of energy. And this is a lot of times how white fragility works. I've seen situations where white people will make themselves the victim or the target of their own accountability. So when people are telling them what you're doing is problematic, they break out into cry, or they do the whole, this is making me really upset. I'm really hurt. I'm nervous. This is messing with my anxiety. They do all these types of self-induced victimhood, even when they're being held accountable to the fuck shit they did. I remember one time, actually, I'm going to talk about that. Well, I had a situation where I confronted a white woman, basically said to her that what she was posting online was racist and whatnot, and it was problematic. And this person then went to a black friend of mine and, really did this, venting and ranting and being all emotional and, feeling like they're being wrong. That this is, they're being the one that's being wrong, even though what they did was highly problematic. So it's a lot of times where this is a pattern. And so James Charles kind of do this type of behavior in his videos, his infamous YouTube apology videos, which some of you all who watch YouTube, there is this pattern where these influencers get a plain back screen. They have a well-lit, okay, italics and a lit camera, lighting, and they give you natural face, and they go up and they talk about this self-discovery and this very fake, deep confessional energy that has really sometimes, covered their asses. But, nonetheless, what happened with Brandon Chapman is that people heard the story, really didn't give a fuck, and really looked at those young men as if they were just, wanted it or flirts or trying to, fuck their way through the top. It was just a very much victim blaming type of rhetoric, and no one had any sympathy because these were men. And I beg the question that if James Charles was straight and these were young girls, underage girls, will we be having this conversation? No. If Brandon Chapman was doing this in a vaudeville set and this involved, cishet women, would this be, just passed on by? The answer is no. Because there's a lot of intersectional issues here and hypocrisies and double standards, right? The race, gender, sexual orientation in this way gets used in a society that doesn't care about that. So then people in the community are off the fend for themselves. And that's what's happening here. So, I hope that people do speak up about this James Charles incident. I really do hope that people sit up and say something, because if they don't, these types of problems will persist. And I don't think he should have his endorsements. I think, people should really make him go to timeout. But it's one time if you're like, okay, look, I missed somebody, I know the age. But child, you have been consistently doing this for several years, and these stories, this is a pattern. It's not an incident. It's a pattern of cases and behavior, and everyone's just treating it like it's these are accusations, but no big deal because they're men and because it involves other male victims. So, fuck James Charles. Now, on something that's really this when I heard this news, I had so many opinions, y'all. I hear stuff like this. I hear stories like this, and it angers me, but it also saddens me. And this is about this gospel singer Donnie McClurkin. You probably heard of Donnie McClurkin, y'all. Gospel singer, legendary. I encourage you all to listen to the song The Promise with him and Yolanda Adams. They did their version of The Promise. And yeah, iconic. Antonio, I think this famous Italian singer, Bellance, whatever, Benonci, whatever. He sings the original song, "The Promise," and it's good. But he sings it in like Italian or whatnot, and it's very high falsetto. But Donnie McClurkin and Yolanda Adams, really made it a big gospel song. And Celine Dion has sung it, and she sings it well too. But Donnie McClurkin and Yolanda Adams' version of that song is just it. Every time I hear it, it gives me chills because of just how good it's. That's real singing. Like, I love Yolanda Adams. I think Yolanda Adams is so underrated, and she's a Houston woman, icon, legend, Grammy winner, who's just underrated. Like, every time Yolanda Adams performs at the BET Awards or some award show or the Grammys, everybody always talk about how great she is and underrated. Well, she's better than most of your faves, and I mean that. So here's what happened. Okay, so Donnie McClurkin has opened up yet again about his sexuality. There's this show on TV One called Uncensored, and he just recently did an episode, and he's 61 years old, y'all, so bear with me. He basically went on this episode and said that he may end up alone for the rest of his life. Okay? Quote, he said, I've messed up more than I've had good. My past relationships were a sprinkling of everything, men and women. So he's, admitting that he's messed with men, which there's always been whispers and rumors about him. I actually met Donnie McClurkin when I was an apprentice on the production of Bobby Jones Gospel, like his last seasons. I met Kirk Franklin. I interviewed Kirk Franklin. I interviewed Donnie McClurkin. I think I met him, but I interviewed Kirk Franklin for sure. Bobby Jones, Dr. Bobby Jones Gospel, the ambassador of gospel. I was happy to be a part of his set to interview him and follow his crew for the last taping of his final season. That man had the longest running show on cable television, over 30 years, of Dr. Bobby Jones Gospel. And he's an icon. And when I went to his celebration, he had his final season celebration. I think it was at the Mayflower or something like that in DC, because BET has a studio in DC around there. I went to this party and I got a picture actually. It was me, Bobby Jones, Kirk Franklin, and Donnie McClurkin. I think it was us in a picture together. But it was just great to meet him. And they were all there cutting up for this final gathering and celebration of that show. And they were singing and killing it. Okay, this is live vocals, killing it. So anyway, McClurkin had previously opened up years ago about his past struggles with his homosexuality, but he has called it a perversion. He claims that he was able to suppress his sexual orientation and really was citing many of his Christian church's stances on homosexuality as a sin. Okay. And he admitted in the interview that he still has these urges to be with men, but he chooses not to, and then what really got me was that he compared being gay and, having same gender loving energy and being homosexual to basically diabetes, basically saying, quote, that, I don't eat sugar, but it doesn't mean I don't want sugar. Okay. So this man, like I say, he won many Grammys, but he now believes because of all of these struggles he faces, he said his struggle over sexuality is going to leave him without the family he's always wanted. He said he never really knew what a woman wanted. He said that, he's messed around with everybody, but pretty much he said that, when things get rough, he goes back to his safe space, which is his music and ministry. So he's lonely, y'all. He's really only focused on his music and his ministry, saying, the biggest thing he said that really just really hurt me was that he said that never having a long-term relationship in my life, he never had one, and that he was never married, and he chalked it all up, but then said probably be alone for the rest of his life as far as a mate is concerned, and this is really weird because I don't know if people caught up. Maybe a lot of people don't catch up with Donnie McClurkin and don't even know who he is. Hey, this is culture. Learn about new people. But 5 years ago, I remember around 2016. So that was probably around the same time. Was I on the set? No, I didn't do Bobby. This was after Bobby Jones. So I was around doing Bobby Jones Gospel around 2014, 2015. So this is before then. This was before this happened. But like in 2016, like he had a relationship with this gospel singer. Her name was Nicole C. Mullen. She's not that famous, but people probably know her. There were rumors that they had been engaged. And then, she had to set the record straight by saying that, they were headed towards marriage, but they were honoring protocol first. But pretty much they didn't get married, y'all. I mean, but people thought she was a beard. People speculated that she was like a beard. He said, honestly, the only thing in his life is missing was marriage. The only thing that was missing that can cause real family is marriage in his beliefs. He said financially he's there, spiritually he's there. He's almost there spiritually, he says. But emotionally he's trying to get it together. And that's sad. That's sad. You know what I'm saying? It's sad. And he's tried to suggest, which is even more problematic, but also just, things that he said that his struggles with his attraction to men was blaming his desires on being a victim of like child, molestation, and which is, this is a troublesome trope. And as a gay person, as a queer person, as a Black queer person specifically, there's always this trope that, people who experience sexual abuse by the same gender, that they're more likely to be gay and this and third. But that's, I have never been sexually abused personally. I didn't have any sisters. All the stereotypes. I've had a father figure in the house. I never, I had brothers. My brothers are straight. I've never had those experiences. My sexuality is my sexuality. It's who I am. And I think sometimes this is just, I feel so bad for Donnie McClurkin. I pity him. When I first read the story, I was like, oh, fuck out of here. But when I started to really think about it, I said, this man is miserable, y'all. Like, of all of his talents, this man has Grammys. This man has sold millions of records. He is living a life of just self-affliction. And it's because we live in a society where, what's so funny is that there were people who were just on Facebook and some people that were like very religious that were like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, why can't this man just live? Do you, boo, do you? But literally, you all were like trashing Lil Nas X like a week ago, talking about how your religion, your faith, can't have you support this man because of his devilish, demonish ways. So it's like, which one is it? Is it that you don't support him because he's gay or whatever the case is? Make up your fucking mind. Like, pick a fucking side and figure it out and stick there. But I hate that there is this ridiculous contempt to try to justify, the abuse, to try to justify the mistreatment, to keep backpedaling every 5 seconds. And I just feel like, people say, Donnie part of the old school. Donnie is a part of the old school. But sometimes the old school need to get with the new school. I just hate that this man can't love himself and feel like he can get the love that he wants because he thinks that it challenges him with sin. That's why I can't be religious. Like, what God would give this man? This is why I struggle. This is why I can't be organized religion, y'all. I can't be organized religion because sometimes I feel like organized crime. Sometimes. Why is this man who's been blessed with these gifts, that can sing, that can do talented work, who's done so much work to inspire so many people, is not allowed to live or to feel like he can be able to have a love by the same faith and gospel that he continues to preach? So weird. And so if that's the type of God that he's serving, I wonder, does he not realize that maybe that's not the God, that maybe that other people are seeing it wrong? I don't know. I just think it's, for me, I can't. And I feel bad for him because I think that Donnie McClurkin has done so much to touch so many people's lives, but the fear of his fans, those people whose lives he's helped heal, he's helped inspire, he's fearful that those same people that he has instilled wisdom and faith and love into would turn on him. And that's why I cannot. That's why I can't. And so, God bless that man. And it's just, stop being, listen, let me just say this to people. I didn't know this was going to be the queer episode or the LGBTQ episode. But let me just say this. We're in a society where cishet people, and I'm talking about cisgender heterosexual people. Cisgender means that you're not trans. Heterosexual means you're not quote unquote LGBTQIA, or basically you're quote unquote straight, right? We live in a society where these people dictate a lot of people's everyday lives in ways that they don't think they do. When you make assumptions about who people are married to, when you share some opinion or take on someone's sexual identity or gender expression, when you support ideals that will discriminate and oppress those of the LGBTQI community because you have your own personal religious beliefs, but then you turn around and say that the LGBTQ community are forcing their beliefs on you when we're not forcing laws, right? We're not forcing laws to tell you that you have to be gay, but you're literally forcing laws that force people to have to be straight, or at least pretend to be at their own, against their free will. You're literally forcing people to be straight. You're telling them that if they're not straight, that pretty much they can lose their job, they can be discriminated for housing and everything else. Like, that is what you're telling people when you create a society that does not just become opinions. They're not fucking opinions. Your opinions are legislation. They're laws. They're things that actually suppress people and stop people from getting things. This wedding that some of you are super excited about, your fucking beliefs and your family belief would have never made that possible. And so that's why I can't trust cishet people when they proclaim their allyship. Just stop saying you're an ally. You can be those things, but just sometimes just stop making it about you. Because there's so many people like Donnie McClurkin who can't live. He's not living. He's not thriving. This man is entrapped. He's literally telling you that he's entrapped. He's not delivered. He's not converted. He's treating it like it's an addiction. Could you imagine? I couldn't even imagine like walking out in public, and this is a fucking grown-up show. Like, I can't imagine going out in public and seeing a man or being attracted to men and not acting on it because of some group of people who are willing to believe that it's abnormal. Like, I'm saying, like, I can't have thoughts, or I'm not allowed to, or I can't be in love. Like, there's a guy, like I don't know what it would be like if I felt emotions and it was mutual with another person, and I just kept looking at them and being like, I can't do anything, but being quote unquote tempted. But it wasn't even tempted in a sexual way, but just love and feelings for another person, the intimacy, the care, the nurture and nature. He's literally not feeling like he can ever have that because he thinks in his head that this God that he believes in will take it away. That's sad. I mean, so what happens when you go to heaven, Donnie? Just curious. Do you just go there and God knows, and God and you just look at each other and just be like, can't do that? Like, what happens when you go to heaven? Do you just continue to just be alone? Like, God, if you believe in God, if you have this religious belief and this religious system, I always challenge Christians on this because I think it's hilarious. If God knows everything, who are you lying to? Who are you lying to? I just wonder, who are you lying to when you fake that funk? I mean, you can fake the funk for other folks, child, but like if God knows you and knows you well, knows your body, knows your experiences, how can he shame you and condemn you for something that you clearly have no control over? But he wants to call love a perversion. He wants to call these feelings a perversion. Okay. So wrapping this up, this is just a public service announcement. This is for white people. Come in, white people. Come here. Come close. Let's talk about this little gun violence situation, little big gun violence issue that's happening in Philadelphia, but also happening across the country. And let's talk about how you respond and talk to Black people. So, some of you all saw this on Instagram because I talk, and on Twitter because I talk. But I got into it with a local white journalist in Philadelphia who is a crime reporter for a radio station or group over here in Philly. And it was around gun violence. So there was an incident that happened in Old City, which is an affluent neighborhood in Philadelphia. It's near Center City, which is also an affluent neighborhood. Predominantly white, right? Wealth, income, average income. People got money over there. Well, there are some really nice restaurants there, including Budokan, which is a Asian infused restaurant, infusion restaurant or whatever. In it's called Budokan, and it's in Old City around Third Street. Really, really nice, fancy. Been there a couple times. Great times. Steven Starr is the owner, who's a well-renowned James Beard Award-winning chef. Philadelphia has several of those, including my good friend Michael Solomonov. So, and Mark Vettri's also in the mix too. Got Vettri, good restaurant. So he, so there was a man, 27 seems like a 25, no, he was 25. He got shot 27 times, in broad daylight, but nightlight, but broad, in public space, in cold blood. People were around, people got injured, people were traumatized. This man was 25, black man, was with his girlfriend, and these people pulled up in a car with a Maryland license that was a metallic color, pulled up and just bust all the caps and shot this man. Like, they were intended to kill him. And they did. They did. He was dead. Like, they shot this man. Like, and the girlfriend didn't get injured. Several other people apparently got injured or got traumatized by the situation. It was horrific. It was a very, very violent scene. So this white reporter tweeted about this and basically put something in caps around Old City. Like, this is an Old City, Philadelphia, in all caps. And I can never unsee the Old City, Philadelphia caps. Like, it was just like, you're really emphasizing this is an Old City. So what are you trying to say? You know what was implied, like, by this nature of this tweet. Like, it was implying to me, my interpretation of it, and several of my followers and other followers who saw it can't unsee it, that she was trying to suggest that for some reason there was a sense of urgency or concern because this was happening in Old City of all places. And I kind of, reply back that, like, listen, this isn't okay because it doesn't matter. Actually, you know what? Let me pull up these receipts and actually read them because I like to read my receipts out loud. So let me back this up a little bit and read this from the beginning so that you all, the listener, can understand my take or my experience with this. Okay, so let me pull this up because I gotta pull it. I want to make sure I read from the beginning. So, okay, the tweet was from her. This is from her. This is an all too frequent sound and scene for photographers and journalists at crime scenes. It's hard to watch, but also important to see and hear the impact of what's happening. This is an Old City, Philadelphia. And they put the word see and hear in caps, and then put this is an Old City, Philadelphia in caps. So then I said, whether it was in Old City, Philadelphia, in all caps, because I'm, I gotta keep it 100, or North Philly, none of this is okay and haven't been for years. It shouldn't take predominantly white neighborhoods and affluent areas to be touted in all caps like some sort of cautionary tale of gun violence in Philly. So here she goes back to respond. She says, you're absolutely right. And that's where the journalists are every day. Whether it's Allegheny Transportation Center, Myers Rec Center, 56 in Chestnut, McPherson Square. The tweet is meant, The tweet is meant to show it's everywhere in the city to those who are unaware and not paying attention. See, this is the part where you could have just been quiet. This is the part where you didn't have to flex because the neighborhoods she named were predominantly black neighborhoods. And I felt like she felt this white need, right? That white need to feel like she had to overcorrect and overexplain and flex this thing like, oh, I know black neighborhoods. I cover these issues. Yes, Sally, I bet you do, because a lot of times white people dominate newsrooms and dominate beats and spaces that they probably have no business actually reporting on, to be quite honest, and so on. But they occupy those spaces. So of course you know about those black neighborhoods that you don't live in, but you pretty much do get the jobs to talk about them. So I said, thanks for the clarity, but I think it's intellectually dishonest to act as though the who and where is so general, especially after you mentioned the other predominantly black and brown locations where gun violence is not, quote unquote, unaware to them. You can just say white folks, it's okay. Like real rap, you can just say white folks. Like when you're saying this tweet is meant to show this is in the city to those who are unaware and not paying attention. I don't know any black people who are unaware or not paying attention to gun violence in Philadelphia. Name the black and Latinx people who don't know that gun violence is an issue in Philadelphia. You wrote that tweet for white people. Just say that. You could just say that and you can be fine, right? Just be like, my fucking bad. No. You know what she says? To my response, which I am giving her energy, I'm putting thought, I'm being very mindful about my words, what I'm saying. Her response, okay, Ernest, period. So when you do that, that lets me know what kind of energy you want. And then to find out that, some of these, white journalists, because you know how it goes, these white journalists or whatever like that, are in situations like this. A lot of this stuff that's going on, like I said, white journalists who are in situations where they are, being held accountable, they always want to retort. They always want to clap back. They always want to, defend their positions and all this other shit. They always are on the defense. And these are moments where you can just shut up and listen to a black person, especially a colleague that's telling you, hey, this is what you're doing and this is what you shouldn't be doing. I always say this, and I'm going to emphasize this into my listeners of my show. Impact trumps intention. Let me repeat that again. Impact trumps intention. The impact of what you've done will always override the intention of what you tried to do. So if I slap you on the butt, which I wouldn't do, but let's say I slapped you on the butt. If I slapped you on the butt and you was like, oh my God, ouch, that hurts. It doesn't fucking matter that I say, oh my God, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. How can I fix that? Let me get some ice for your bum. I'm sorry. That's the reality. That's the mentality. You hit somebody, you drive down the car and you're not paying attention and you hit somebody that was walking down the street. When you get out that car, if your response is telling that person who's on the floor fucking bleeding, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. Rather than, how can I help you? Fuck, you need ice? Can I call an ambulance? If your response is the former, you're doing it wrong. And so I always feel like white people get in these situations, and in any group that's coming from a privileged background in these certain dynamics, they always feel like they have to over-explain and over-correct and over-justify their fuck shit. No, your fuck shit was not justifiable. Reverse course. Don't do that. Go back. Simple. And so these are the things that I see a lot of white people do. And I just want to encourage you all that while you're mad, and while you're frustrated, and while you think you're being wronged, and while you have all these gripes, take a chill pill. When that happened, I had to take a moment to myself, and I said it reminded me of why I am in this business, why I work for myself. And I said to myself, you know what? I had to talk my shit on Twitter because I wanted people to understand my position on this issue. And I wanted to let people understand how I really felt. And so I said to somebody, and I had to keep it real. I said, because people always ask me this, I said, a friendly reminder for those who often ask, what makes your writing different? My writing. Everything you read from me are my own words. Every pitch, idea is mine. No headline gets ran without my permission. Without my consent. I don't ask for permission. I discuss my terms. I center Black and brown communities. Intersectionality is encouraged, not debated. I get paid for everything. And I think that's important to let people know that there is a freedom in that. Because if I had to work with this coworker, I would have been pissed off the entire day. I wouldn't get to go home, debrief for my friends, drink ashwagandha tea and chill out and live my best life and stay Black and unbothered. I wouldn't be able to do that. I would have to be in this tighted space where I'm dealing with this microaggression and this white fragility and this whining and walking on eggshells. I love that I'm my own boss and that I can able to take calls and be able to say shit like, HR is me. Human relations, because I would have to deal with that kind of shit. And those are the moments where I'm reminded that the path that I'm on and what I do matters. And I'm happy that I'm able to do this in a way that does not put me in a position that alienates me. That puts me in a position where I have to walk on eggshells. I think when you read independent writers' work, I just feel like it reads better sometimes. I'm not saying that people who work full-time in journalism don't have work that is good. No. Let me clarify that. Let me be clear about it. It's not that at all. It's that there's a freedom you can read freedom. You can read freedom. When I read some writers who work full-time at publications, I read constraint. Words that they could have went harder in a section, a paragraph, a sentence. They could have went in a little bit more. But for whatever reasons, there was that editor that was sensitive and told them, no, don't say it like that, or you got to do, and their words got watered down. I can't tell you how many. I'm the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, the president. I can't tell you how many writers I talk to that work full time in these newsrooms that I read their work and they're telling me, man, I really want to do this, but my editor wouldn't let me. I wouldn't do this or whatever. I don't have those problems. I love that I can talk my shit and talk about things that matter and don't get censored. Because my mentality is, if you won't let me publish it here this way, I will take it somewhere else will let me. And I tell that to all the publications I write for. But I don't have these issues because they know that's the deal. When I sign a contract, when I do a deal, when I get a check or whatever the case is, I'm very adamant that whatever I produce, I have to be able to explain this to my followers. I'm going to have to be able to make it make sense. And I fought for this liberation. I fought for this freedom to do it. Not everyone can for different reasons, right? Some people need benefits, and I'm about to get married into some benefits because my man is not in the media space in that kind of way. But, he has the traditional 9-to-5 job. And so I'm able to be on his benefits to be able to be a creative writer in this type of way and be expressive in this way. But I'm just telling Black people that any opportunity you get, any person, right, whether you're a woman or from the LGBTQ community, whatever your case is, whatever bondage you're in, find ways to liberate yourself. Find them and remind yourself of what's important. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. We can, in thinking about all of this episode, whether you're trying to get to this place of trying to, you're enchaining yourself financially, sexually, whatever the case is, that shit ain't liberation. It ain't freedom. Give yourself that. Be easy on yourself. Stop shitting on yourself. Stop being self-deprecating all the time. Stop worrying about the things you can't control. Be in a space where you can live with yourself and love yourself. And if the things around you, whether it's religion, whether it's certain people, whether it's a community or a workspace, if that is not serving you to be your best self or represent you in the best way, then don't do it. But I want to tell you all something real quick. Last week, I told y'all to keep your thoughts and prayers about opportunity and situation I'm in that's good, and I want blessings and received. Well, guess what? A week later, I can say that there is some progress moving on that thing. Can't say what it is, but you guys are out here really giving your thoughts and prayers and your excitements and blessings, and things are happening, and I'm super excited. And, I'll tell you when it's all done, but I'm just saying thank you all for continuing to have me in your thoughts in good ways. And, I sense a breakthrough. All right. Be well. Be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.